My wife said, "This marriage is too predictable, I need drama," so I gave her the ultimate plot twist, sold everything and vanished while she was on her soul-searching trip. Sometimes people don't realize that the stability they take for granted can disappear faster than their latest spiritual awakening. I learned this lesson the hard way, but honestly, it turned out to be the best education I ever received. I met Sophia at a wine tasting event in River Oaks, one of those exclusive affairs where Houston's energy elite pretended to understand the difference between a 2018 Bordeaux and liquid sophistication. I was there because my boss thought it would be good for my career advancement. Petroleum engineers don't typically move in these circles, but I was methodical about climbing the corporate ladder at my oil refinery company. Sophia was working the event as a sommelier while finishing her MBA in international business, and she had this effortless way of making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. When she explained the subtle notes in a Merlot to me, I found myself genuinely impressed by her knowledge and confidence. "Most people just pretend to taste what I'm describing," she said with a smile that could have powered half of Houston. "You actually listen." I was 29 and had spent most of my adult life focused entirely on technical specifications and project timelines, but Sophia opened doors to a world I'd never imagined accessing. Our first 18 months together felt like a masterclass in sophisticated living. She introduced me to charity galas where I rubbed shoulders with oil executives I'd only seen in industry magazines, weekend getaways to Austin wineries where she knew the owners personally, and country club events where her networking skills were absolutely brilliant to watch. I found myself buying expensive suits that actually fit properly and learning which fork to use during 7-course dinners. Sophia had this remarkable ability to remember everyone's names, their spouse's interests, and exactly the right conversation topics to make lasting impressions. "Carter's the brilliant engineer I've been telling you about," she'd say, introducing me to people who could genuinely advance my career. "He's working on the offshore drilling project that's going to revolutionize Gulf operations." She made me sound more impressive than I felt, but her confidence in me started making me believe it too. The country club lifestyle suited us both perfectly. I provided the stable income and growing professional reputation, while she brought the social connections and cultural sophistication that elevated us both. We became one of those couples that other people pointed to as relationship goals. The perfect merger of technical expertise and social prowess that Houston's energy industry circles seemed to admire. I remember thinking during those early months that I'd finally found someone who could match my ambition with her own sophisticated vision of success. Sophia had this way of making our relationship feel like a strategic partnership where both of us brought valuable assets to the table, and I genuinely believed we were building something substantial together. She would study my project reports with real interest, asking intelligent questions about drilling techniques and environmental protocols that showed she understood the complexity of my work. "You're going to be running that company someday," she'd tell me after I'd explained some particularly challenging engineering problem I'd solved. "I can see it in how you think through these issues." Those conversations made me feel like she saw potential in me that even I hadn't fully recognized yet. After 3 years together, Sophia and I purchased a stunning penthouse overlooking downtown Houston's skyline, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows and a rooftop terrace that became our personal entertainment space for hosting industry networking events. I remember standing in our empty living room on moving day, watching Sophia plan where to position the furniture for optimal conversation flow during cocktail parties. "We need to create natural gathering spots," she explained, gesturing toward the windows. "People will gravitate toward the view, so we'll put the bar set up right here." The place was everything we'd worked toward: modern, sophisticated, and perfectly positioned for the life we were building together. Our housewarming party was legendary among our social circle, with oil executives, luxury brand representatives, and Houston's cultural elite mingling on our terrace under string lights that Sophia had personally selected to create the perfect ambience. Sophia completed her MBA with honors and immediately secured a prestigious position as a strategic consultant for international luxury brands, while I got promoted to lead engineer on a major offshore drilling project that would define my career trajectory. We seemed to have achieved that perfect power couple balance that Houston's energy circles celebrated at charity galas and country club dinners. Our calendars filled with invitation-only events, wine tastings with industry leaders, and weekend trips to exclusive resorts where Sophia could network with potential clients while I connected with other executives in the energy sector. But something shifted after Sophia's consulting firm assigned her to work with several celebrity lifestyle brands. She started following Instagram accounts of travel bloggers and lifestyle influencers who promoted what they called authentic living and breaking free from societal expectations. I'd find her scrolling through posts about people who'd abandoned corporate careers to live in converted vans or start organic farms in remote locations. "Look at this couple," she'd say, showing me photos of two former executives who'd moved to Costa Rica to run a sustainable coffee plantation. They look so genuinely happy, not like they're performing happiness for social media. When I pointed out that our life was pretty genuine too, she'd get this distant look and say something about how we were caught in a materialistic hamster wheel that prevented real connection and growth. The criticism started subtly but became increasingly pointed during our dinner conversations. "Do you ever wonder if we're just playing roles that society expects from us?" she'd ask while picking at the gourmet meals I'd ordered from our favorite restaurants. Like, are we actually happy, or do we just think we should be happy because we have everything we're supposed to want? I tried booking exotic vacations to Belize and arranging private chef experiences at home, thinking maybe she needed more adventure and luxury to shake off whatever restlessness had settled over her. But even during our weekend getaway to a 5-star resort in Cabo, she spent most of the time reading books about conscious living and complaining that the other guests seemed fake and superficial. "Everyone here is just trying to escape their empty lives with expensive distractions," she said while we sat by the infinity pool overlooking the ocean. When was the last time we had a real conversation about what we actually want from life? I thought we'd been having those conversations all along, but apparently my ideas about building wealth and advancing our careers didn't qualify as meaningful discussions in her new framework. She started suggesting we needed more real challenges and meaningful struggles to grow as people, as if our comfortable success was somehow preventing us from becoming our authentic selves. That's when Sophia discovered Maximus, a charismatic life transformation coach who specialized in helping what he called unfulfilled high achievers break through limiting beliefs. She found him through one of those lifestyle influencers she'd been following, and within weeks she was attending his weekend workshops in the Texas Hill Country, learning about conscious uncoupling from toxic patterns and embracing your authentic wild self. I should have been more concerned when she started coming home from these retreats speaking in what sounded like rehearsed catchphrases about energy alignment and releasing attachment to comfort zones. But I figured it was just another phase that would pass once the novelty wore off. The first red flag was when she began criticizing my fear-based thinking whenever I questioned her new interests or suggested we stick to our established plans. "Carter, you're operating from a scarcity mindset," she'd say with this condescending tone whenever I mentioned our budget or questioned the necessity of her latest spiritual purchase. Maximus says that people who resist growth are usually projecting their own limitations onto their partners. I'd never heard her talk like that before, using therapeutic language as a weapon to shut down normal conversations about our relationship and finances. The transformation was remarkable to watch, and not in a good way. The woman who'd once impressed oil executives with her sophisticated business insights was now parroting self-help mantras she'd learned from weekend workshops. She purchased expensive crystals that supposedly aligned her chakras, including a particularly ridiculous amethyst cluster that cost $800 and now dominated our dining room table. She started a daily meditation practice that required absolute silence in our penthouse during specific hours, which meant I had to plan my work calls around her sacred morning routine. Most significantly, she signed up for Maximus's exclusive year-long Soul Liberation Mastermind program that cost $15,000 without discussing it with me first. When I saw the credit card statement, I asked her if we could discuss such a significant expense before committing to it. "This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior that Maximus warned me about," she replied, as if wanting to discuss a $15,000 purchase with my partner was somehow abusive. "He says that when people feel threatened by their partner's growth, they try to use money as a tool of manipulation." The irony of her accusing me of financial manipulation while spending our money on a guru's expensive programs wasn't lost on me, but pointing that out only resulted in more lectures about my unconscious resistance to transformation. According to Sophia's new worldview, any practical concern I raised was evidence of my spiritual immaturity and fear of authentic living. When I suggested we plan our annual Aspen ski trip, something we'd both looked forward to every year since we'd been together, Sophia dismissed it as just more materialistic escapism that would distract her from the important inner journey work she was doing with Maximus's guidance. We keep trying to fill the void inside us with external experiences, she explained with the authority of someone who'd attended 3 weekend workshops. Maximus is teaching me to find fulfillment from within instead of constantly seeking validation through expensive vacations and status symbols. This from the woman who'd spent the previous year carefully curating our social media presence to showcase our luxury lifestyle and professional achievements. Our penthouse, which had once been our pride and joy, became cluttered with vision boards covered in magazine cutouts of spiritual retreats and motivational quotes, meditation cushions strategically placed throughout our living spaces, and books with titles like Breaking Free from Codependency and Awakening Your Divine Feminine Power. The sophisticated entertaining space we'd created for networking events was gradually transformed into what Sophia called her manifestation sanctuary, complete with burning sage that made our home smell like a head shop and wind chimes that created constant background noise during my work-from-home days. I noticed Sophia posting cryptic social media quotes about outgrowing people who don't support your evolution and releasing relationships that no longer serve your highest good, accompanied by photos of sunsets and inspirational landscapes that seemed designed to communicate something specific to people who weren't me. More concerning were the late-night calls from Maximus that she would take privately on our terrace, speaking in hushed tones while pacing back and forth for hours at a time. He's helping me process some breakthrough insights about my relationship patterns, she explained when I asked why her spiritual coach needed to call her at 11 o'clock at night. This work requires complete emotional honesty, and some people aren't ready to hear certain truths about themselves. The implication was clear. I was one of those people who couldn't handle the truth about myself, while she was courageously facing her authentic self with Maximus's enlightened guidance. What bothered me most wasn't the money or even the late-night calls, but how quickly she'd transformed from the confident, sophisticated woman I'd fallen in love with into someone who needed constant validation from a man she'd known for 3 months and couldn't make a decision without consulting his higher wisdom. Sophia began having daily phone sessions with Maximus under the guise of accountability coaching, conversations that lasted for hours and always happened when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I'd come home from work to find her pacing around our terrace, speaking in hushed, intimate tones about her breakthrough realizations and limiting beliefs around deserving love. She started rearranging our penthouse to create what she called a sacred meditation space, which meant moving our expensive furniture around to accommodate an elaborate altar covered with crystals, candles, and photos of spiritual teachers that Maximus had recommended. The transformation of our home was jarring. What had once been a sophisticated entertaining space now looked like a new age gift shop had exploded in our living room, complete with dream catchers, incense burners, and motivational posters featuring Sanskrit quotes that she couldn't actually translate. She became emotionally unavailable in ways that felt calculated and deliberate, responding to my attempts at intimacy with lectures about how physical connection should only happen when souls are properly aligned and both partners are operating from their highest vibrational frequency. According to her new spiritual framework, my desire for normal couple intimacy was evidence of my lower chakra attachment patterns that needed to be healed before we could experience divine union. "Carter, you're approaching me from a place of need rather than love," she'd say when I tried to hold her hand during a movie. "Maximus is teaching me to recognize when someone's energy is coming from desperation instead of authentic connection." This from the woman who used to initiate physical affection and joke about how much she enjoyed our chemistry together. I discovered that Sophia had been sending Maximus photos of our home and sharing intimate details about our relationship during these coaching sessions, supposedly for breakthrough work around her patterns of settling for less than she deserved. She showed me screenshots of his responses, where he analyzed our penthouse decor and lifestyle choices as symbols of our spiritual disconnection and attachment to material validation. Maximus thinks our home environment is blocking my ability to access my authentic self, she explained while burning sage in our bedroom at 7 in the morning. He says that people who surround themselves with expensive things are usually trying to compensate for inner emptiness. This from a woman who'd spent the last 3 years carefully selecting every piece of furniture and artwork in our home, taking pride in creating a space that reflected our success and sophisticated taste. The hypocrisy was stunning, but pointing it out only triggered more lectures about my resistance to growth. She started refusing to attend our usual social events, claiming they were draining her life force energy and preventing her from maintaining the high vibration that Maximus was helping her cultivate. Country club dinners became toxic gatherings of unconscious people, charity galas were performative displays of ego, and networking events were soul-crushing exercises in fake connection. The same social activities that had once energized her and advanced both our careers were now obstacles to her spiritual development that she needed to avoid to protect her energetic boundaries. Our friends began asking why Sophia never joined us anymore, and I found myself making excuses for her absence while privately wondering how long I could maintain relationships that she decided were spiritually harmful. Most nights, she slept in our guest room to maintain her spiritual vibration without my dense energy interfering with her dream work and astral projection practice. She'd emerge in the morning looking refreshed and superior, as if sleeping separately had somehow purified her while I'd spent the night wallowing in spiritual darkness. When I confronted her about these changes, pointing out that we were becoming strangers living in the same apartment, Sophia accused me of being emotionally immature and threatened by her growth. Maximus warned me that people in my life would resist my transformation, she said with the smugness of someone who'd found the ultimate excuse for treating her partner poorly. He says that when someone starts operating from their authentic power, it triggers other people's insecurities about their own spiritual stagnation. The gaslighting was remarkable in its sophistication. Any legitimate concern I raised about our relationship was reframed as evidence of my psychological problems and spiritual inadequacy. She became increasingly secretive about her activities, claiming that her inner work required privacy and that sharing details with uninitiated people could compromise her progress. She spent hours texting during our rare shared meals, her face lit up with excitement as she exchanged messages with Maximus and other members of his spiritual community. "You wouldn't understand the concepts we're discussing," she'd say when I asked about her constant phone activity. "This is advanced consciousness work that requires years of preparation to fully comprehend." The woman who'd once valued my intelligence and sought my opinions on everything was now treating me like I was too spiritually primitive to understand her elevated conversations about chakras and energy fields. I decided to organize an intimate dinner party at our penthouse for our 4th anniversary, inviting Sophia's parents and my closest colleagues to celebrate our relationship milestones with what I'd planned as a surprise engagement announcement. The timing felt right despite everything that had been happening 4 years together, both of us established in our careers, a beautiful home that represented our shared success. I thought maybe a formal commitment would help Sophia remember what we'd built together and refocus her energy on our partnership instead of Maximus's spiritual fantasies. I'd spent weeks coordinating with our favorite chef from the country club, the same one who'd catered our housewarming party where Sophia had been so proud to show off our penthouse and introduce me to Houston's social elite. I'd purchased a custom-designed engagement ring from the jewelry store where we'd browsed together the previous Christmas, back when she still cared about traditional symbols of commitment and success. The ring was everything Sophia had admired during that shopping trip, a 2-carat princess-cut diamond in a platinum setting that reflected her sophisticated taste and our shared prosperity. I'd prepared a heartfelt speech about our future together, reminiscing about our journey from that first wine tasting where she'd impressed me with her knowledge to building our life in this penthouse that had once made us both so proud. My speech outlined my vision for our continued growth as partners in both business and love, perhaps traveling together for my international projects, maybe starting a family in a few years, definitely continuing to build the kind of power couple legacy that Houston's energy circles would remember. The evening was meant to be perfect in every detail: intimate lighting that showcased our city views, her parents' favorite wine from a vineyard we'd visited together in Napa, stories from our colleagues about how we'd become the couple everyone looked up to as relationship goals. I'd even arranged for the chef to recreate the exact meal from our first anniversary dinner, thinking the nostalgia would remind Sophia of how good we used to be together before spiritual awakening became more important than our actual relationship. Her father had been particularly excited about the dinner invitation, mentioning how proud he was of the man I'd become and how grateful he felt that his daughter had found someone so committed to building a stable future together. Sophia arrived home during the party after spending the entire day at one of Maximus's breakthrough intensives, and I could immediately tell something was wrong from the way she surveyed our guests with barely concealed hostility. Her parents were making comfortable conversation with my colleagues about the oil industry and Houston's economic growth. Everyone was enjoying the wine and appetizers I'd carefully selected, and the atmosphere was exactly the kind of sophisticated gathering we used to host together with ease and natural grace. But instead of joining the celebration or even greeting our guests properly, Sophia stood in our doorway looking like she'd walked into an elaborate trap designed to compromise her spiritual progress. Her face displayed the same disdain she'd developed for all of our social obligations, as if being surrounded by successful, stable people was somehow toxic to her authentic self. "What's all this?" she asked with a tone that made our guests stop their conversations and turn toward us with confused expressions. "It's our anniversary dinner," I said, trying to salvage the mood while feeling my carefully planned evening start to crumble around me. I wanted to celebrate 4 years together with the people who matter most to us, the people who've supported our relationship from the beginning. That's when everything went completely off the rails in front of everyone who'd witnessed our relationship develop from those early country club events to this moment that was supposed to represent our commitment to a shared future. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," Sophia announced to our assembled guests, as if they were there to witness some kind of intervention rather than a romantic celebration. "This whole performance represents everything that's inauthentic and manipulative about our relationship dynamic. Carter is trying to trap me in outdated relationship paradigms by creating public pressure around commitment that I never agreed to participate in." My colleagues exchanged deeply uncomfortable glances while her parents looked genuinely shocked by their daughter's hostile reaction to what should have been a romantic gesture that any woman would appreciate. I felt the engagement ring box burning in my pocket as Sophia continued her public dismantling of our relationship in front of people who'd invested emotionally in our success as a couple and expected to be celebrating our engagement announcement. "Maximus has been helping me recognize how Carter uses these grand gestures to control the narrative of our relationship," she continued, completely oblivious to the mortified expressions of our guests who were witnessing this breakdown in real time. "Instead of doing the inner work to become someone I could authentically choose, he tries to manufacture moments that force me into responding with gratitude and compliance rather than honest evaluation of our compatibility." The silence in our penthouse was absolutely deafening as everyone processed what they were witnessing. The sophisticated, ambitious woman they'd known for years was publicly humiliating her partner using language that sounded borrowed from self-help books and delivered with the conviction of someone who'd found ultimate truth. Her own parents looked like they wanted to disappear through our floor-to-ceiling windows, while my boss and his wife clearly regretted accepting the invitation to what had become a relationship crisis unfolding in real time. The evening reached its breaking point when Sophia revealed that she'd been seriously considering Maximus's invitation to join his exclusive 3-month spiritual awakening retreat in Costa Rica, effectively abandoning our shared life for an extended period to pursue what she called conscious evolution beyond the limitations of conventional partnership structures. "I need to discover who I really am outside the constraints of this codependent dynamic," she explained to our horrified guests, as if they'd asked for a detailed analysis of her relationship philosophy. "Maximus says that most people are too afraid to choose growth over comfort, but I'm finally ready to prioritize my authentic self over societal expectations about what relationships should look like." I watched our friends and family members struggle to find appropriate responses to her announcement, realizing that this woman had become completely unrecognizable from the person I'd fallen in love with at that wine tasting 4 years ago. My carefully planned proposal speech felt absolutely ridiculous in my head as Sophia stormed out of our own anniversary party, leaving me to explain her breakdown to our shocked guests while quietly returning the engagement ring to its box and wondering how I'd become the villain in a story where I was the only person actually trying to maintain our relationship. Sophia returned the following evening acting like the anniversary disaster had never happened, casually announcing that she needed to attend Maximus's Costa Rica retreat to discover her true self outside the constraints of our codependent dynamic, and she expected me to support her journey with what she called unconditional love and spiritual maturity. She'd clearly spent the night at a hotel processing her public breakdown, but instead of apologizing for humiliating me in front of our friends and family, she doubled down on her narrative that our relationship needed this dramatic intervention to survive. She framed the 3-month separation as essential for bringing her highest self back to our relationship, making it abundantly clear that she expected our penthouse and entire lifestyle to remain available as her home base when she decided to return from her spiritual vacation. "This isn't about abandoning us," she explained while packing spiritual books and crystals into an expensive Louis Vuitton suitcase I'd bought her for our European vacation the previous year. "This is about me becoming the woman you deserve, someone who can love you from a place of wholeness instead of neediness and unconscious patterns." The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. She was framing her abandonment of our relationship as a generous gift she was giving me, something I should be grateful for rather than devastated by. She handed me a printed itinerary showing 3 months of consciousness expansion workshops, soul retrieval ceremonies, and divine feminine awakening intensives in Costa Rica, as if I was her travel agent rather than her partner of 4 years who'd just been publicly humiliated at our anniversary dinner. "Maximus says that most relationships fail because people enter them from wounded places," she continued, completely oblivious to how insulting this entire conversation was. "By doing this deep healing work, I'll be able to come back and love you the way you've always deserved to be loved, without all the limitations and fears that have been blocking our connection." The implication was crystal clear. Everything about our relationship up to this point had been inadequate because she'd been operating from a damaged psychological state that only Maximus could heal through expensive retreats in tropical locations. According to her new worldview, our 4 years together had been a practice run for the real relationship that would begin when she returned from Costa Rica as her authentic self. Instead of agreeing to her terms like the supportive boyfriend she clearly expected me to be, I immediately contacted our real estate agent and put our penthouse on the market that same morning, while simultaneously calling my boss to accept a job transfer opportunity I'd been considering to lead a new drilling operation in Alaska. The transfer had been available for months, but I turned it down because Sophia had claimed she wanted to build our life in Houston where her consulting career was flourishing and her social connections were strongest. Now that she was planning to abandon that life for 3 months of spiritual tourism with a man she'd known for less than a year, I saw absolutely no reason to maintain our expensive lifestyle as her safety net while she explored her options. I told Sophia that if she truly needed to discover herself outside the constraints of our relationship, she should do it without any backup plans or guaranteed soft landings, and that I was choosing to pursue my own authentic path rather than waiting around for her to decide whether I was worth keeping after her spiritual awakening. "I'm not going to be here when you get back," I said calmly while she stared at me in genuine shock. "If this retreat is really about finding yourself and breaking free from codependent patterns, then you should experience what it's like to have actual consequences for your choices instead of knowing you can always come home to someone who'll take care of you while you figure things out." Sophia became visibly panicked by my decisive response, having clearly expected me to be devastated and beg her to stay, or at least promise to wait faithfully for her return like some kind of spiritual widow maintaining the home fires while she gallivanted around Costa Rica with Maximus. She frantically tried to negotiate a compromise where she could still go on her soul-searching adventure but return to our unchanged life afterward, suddenly very interested in discussing our relationship timeline and future plans that she'd been dismissing as fear-based attachment for months. "Carter, you're being completely unreasonable about this," she said with rising desperation as the reality of my response sank in. "This is temporary, just 3 months. I'll be back in the spring, and we can start fresh with everything I've learned about conscious partnership and authentic love. You can't just sell our home and move to Alaska because I need some time to grow spiritually. But that's exactly what I could do, and exactly what I was going to do, and the beautiful thing about it was that she'd spent months telling me I needed to embrace authentic living and break free from limiting beliefs about what relationships should look like. I'd spent months watching her prioritize a stranger's opinion over our partnership, listening to her criticize everything we'd built together, and accepting her emotional withdrawal as if I deserved to be treated like a placeholder in my own relationship while she shopped around for something better. If Maximus was really helping her discover her authentic self, then she could discover what life looked like without the financial and emotional security I'd been providing while she explored her spiritual options with other men. The conversation escalated dramatically as Sophia realized I wasn't bluffing about the Alaska transfer or the penthouse sale, and her spiritual enlightenment quickly gave way to practical panic about losing her comfortable lifestyle and social status. "You're sabotaging our relationship because you're threatened by my growth," she accused, falling back on Maximus's familiar talking points. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior he warned me about, trying to manipulate me through fear and financial pressure. The irony was absolutely perfect. She was calling me controlling for refusing to be controlled, for declining to wait around as her backup plan while she spent 3 months in paradise with her spiritual guru exploring divine partnership with someone who wasn't me. Within 6 weeks, I'd sold the penthouse at a significant profit thanks to Houston's booming real estate market, liquidated our joint assets, and relocated to Anchorage, Alaska, where I purchased a rugged cabin near Denali National Park and began my new position overseeing remote drilling operations in the Arctic Circle. The transition happened faster than I'd anticipated, but once I'd made the decision to leave, every step felt like shedding weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for months. My new job came with a substantial raise and the kind of challenging projects I'd been hoping for since college, managing operations in extreme conditions where technical expertise actually mattered more than social networking and spiritual enlightenment. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Sophia was in Costa Rica learning about authentic living from a charlatan, I was experiencing genuine authenticity through work that demanded real competence and carried actual consequences for failure. I completely erased my digital footprint, deleted all social media accounts where Sophia could track my activities, changed my phone number, and instructed my bank to forward no information about my location to anyone, wanting absolute separation from my Houston life and Sophia's spiritual journey with Maximus. I contacted our mutual friends to let them know I was relocating for work, but I was deliberately vague about specifics and asked them not to share details if anyone came looking for me. Most of them understood. They'd witnessed Sophia's breakdown at our anniversary dinner and weren't particularly surprised that our relationship hadn't survived her spiritual awakening phase. The cabin I'd purchased was everything our penthouse wasn't: rustic, practical, surrounded by wilderness that demanded respect rather than serving as a backdrop for Instagram photos and spiritual performance. No meditation altars or vision boards cluttering the space, just solid wood furniture, a stone fireplace that actually provided heat rather than ambience, and windows that looked out on mountains instead of corporate skyscrapers and the urban landscape we'd once thought represented success. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without someone analyzing my energy patterns or questioning whether my choices aligned with my authentic self. The silence was remarkable after months of living with someone who needed constant validation for her spiritual insights and breakthrough realizations. When Sophia returned from Costa Rica after her relationship with Maximus imploded, according to the private investigator she eventually hired, he'd been running multiple spiritual awakening schemes with different women and disappeared with several participants' money when local authorities started investigating his operation. She discovered the penthouse sold and me completely vanished without any forwarding information or trace of my new location. The investigators' report, which my brother later described to me in careful detail, painted a picture of Sophia frantically searching through our former building's mailroom, interrogating our old neighbors about my departure, and offering substantial money to anyone who might have information about my whereabouts or future plans. She'd apparently expected to return from her consciousness expansion retreat to find me waiting patiently in our penthouse, probably with flowers and an apology for not supporting her journey, ready to hear about her spiritual transformation and recommit to our relationship with her newfound wisdom. Instead, she found an empty apartment that no longer belonged to us and a complete absence of any information about where I'd gone or whether I ever planned to return to Houston. Panicking about her complete loss of financial security and social status, she hired a private investigator and began systematically contacting my former colleagues, college friends, distant relatives, and anyone else who might have insight into my location, trying to piece together my whereabouts while promising them she'd evolved during her time in Costa Rica and was ready to commit fully to our relationship. She apparently told everyone the same rehearsed story, that she'd made a terrible mistake, learned valuable lessons about what really mattered in life, and just needed to find me so she could make things right between us and prove her newfound commitment to our partnership. My former boss told the investigator that she'd called the office multiple times claiming to be my fiancé and needing my emergency contact information for a family crisis, but our HR department had strict policies about sharing employee data with unauthorized individuals, especially when the person calling wasn't listed on any official documents. My college roommate received several calls where Sophia alternated between tears and anger, insisting that I was having some kind of emotional breakdown and that people who genuinely cared about me should help her track me down for my own psychological well-being. She even contacted my parents, spinning a story about how worried she was about my mental state and suggesting that I needed intervention from people who loved me, but they politely told her they had no information about my current situation and suggested she move on with her life for everyone's benefit. This apparently sent her into a rage about how I'd turned my family against her and poisoned everyone with lies about their relationship, which only confirmed my parents' impression that I'd made the right decision in leaving. My brother eventually informed me about Sophia's increasingly desperate search efforts through a secure communication channel we'd established, but by then I'd already adapted completely to life in the Alaskan wilderness and found genuine peace in the harsh beauty of the frontier environment. The work was demanding in ways that felt meaningful and substantial, managing drilling operations where small mistakes could have serious safety and environmental consequences, coordinating with teams who valued competence over consciousness expansion, solving real engineering problems that affected energy production rather than abstract issues about spiritual alignment and authentic self-expression. My days started before dawn with equipment checks and safety briefings, continued through challenging problem-solving in extreme weather conditions, and ended with the kind of exhaustion that comes from actual physical and mental challenges rather than emotional manipulation and relationship drama. The authenticity that Sophia had been seeking through expensive workshops and guru guidance, I'd found through direct engagement with an environment that didn't care about my personal growth journey but demanded excellence, preparation, and respect for natural forces beyond human control or spiritual manipulation.